My wife told me I don't owe you intimacy, so I stopped giving the love, effort, and commitment she took for granted. She thought nothing would change until our marriage started falling apart. Hello, Reddit I plus here. My wife said, I don't owe you intimacy, so I stopped owing her everything else. Now she's calling me the villain. I'm a 39-year-old man. My wife is 37. We've been married for 9 years, together for almost 12. I honestly never thought I'd be the kind of person posting on Reddit, but I'm at a point where I genuinely don't know if I'm being unreasonable or if I've finally woken up after years of ignoring what was right in front of me. For most of our marriage, I believed love was something you proved through actions. I worked 60-hour weeks so we could afford a better neighborhood. I skipped fishing trips with friends because she said weekends were our time. I repaired the roof instead of paying someone because I wanted to save money for the vacations she dreamed about. When her father got sick, I drove him to appointments twice a week for nearly a year without complaining once. When she wanted to quit her stressful job, I encouraged her to do it and picked up even more overtime so she could figure out her next step without worrying about bills. I never kept score because I thought that's what husbands did. Marriage wasn't supposed to be 50-50 every day. Some days one person carries more. I just didn't realize I had been carrying almost all of it. About 3 months ago, I finally brought up something that had been bothering me for years. Our physical relationship had slowly disappeared. It wasn't about how often we had sex, it was about feeling unwanted. Every hug felt rushed, every kiss felt like checking a box. Every attempt I made was met with an excuse. Too tired, too stressed, maybe tomorrow. Eventually, tomorrow became next week became next month. After enough rejection, you stop feeling disappointed. You start feeling invisible. One evening, after another awkward attempt to reconnect, I asked if we could actually talk. I told her I missed feeling close to her. I missed feeling like her husband instead of a roommate who happened to pay the mortgage. She stared at me for a few seconds before folding her arms. Then she said something I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. I don't owe you intimacy. Not angry, not emotional, just flat. Almost like she'd practiced saying it. I blinked. I'm not saying you owe me anything, I replied carefully. I'm saying I miss feeling connected to my wife. She rolled her eyes. Marriage doesn't mean I have to meet your needs whenever you want. Stop acting entitled. That word hit me harder than anything else. Entitled. I had spent nearly a decade believing we were partners. Apparently, I had become an obligation. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I just nodded and went upstairs. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I realized something. She was absolutely right. Nobody owes anyone affection. Nobody owes anyone intimacy. Those things should be given freely. But if that's true, then love isn't just about one person's needs either. So I decided I would stop giving what wasn't freely appreciated. Not to punish her. To see what was actually holding our marriage together. I stopped volunteering for every little thing. I stopped asking if she wanted coffee every morning. I stopped filling up her gas tank on my lunch break. I stopped folding her laundry after mine. I stopped reminding her about appointments. I stopped bringing home flowers just because. When she texted me during work asking if I could pick up groceries, I'd answer politely. I'm tied up today. You'll have to grab them. When she asked if I could clean the kitchen because she'd had a long day, I'd simply say, I'm exhausted too. Nothing rude, nothing dramatic, just equal effort. At first, she didn't even notice. She had grown so used to everything simply happening. The refrigerator stayed stocked, the lawn stayed cut, the bills got paid, her favorite snacks magically appeared, until they didn't. About 2 weeks later, she walked into the garage while I was changing the oil in my truck. Did you forget to do the laundry? No. You knew I needed work clothes. I figured you'd handle yours. She looked genuinely confused. But you always do it. I shrugged. I used to. She stood there for a second like her brain couldn't process the conversation. Little cracks started appearing after that. One evening, she came downstairs and asked why there weren't any clean towels. You didn't wash them? No. Why not? I used the last clean one yesterday, she frowned. So, you just left them? Yeah. You knew I'd need one. I smiled politely. I don't owe you laundry. She froze. For a split second, I thought she was going to laugh. Instead, her face turned bright red. That's different. How? Silence. She stormed upstairs. The next day, she didn't speak to me. Honestly, the quiet was peaceful. A week later, she asked why I hadn't planned anything for our anniversary. I looked up from my laptop. You usually make reservations. I know. So, where are we going? I didn't make any. Why? I didn't feel like it. She stared at me. Seriously? Yeah. She laughed nervously. I can't believe you're being this petty. I can't believe you think effort only goes one direction. That conversation ended with another slammed door. Then came the moment everything changed. She walked into the living room one Saturday morning holding a stack of unpaid utility bills. I thought you handled these. I handled my share. What does that mean? It means your paycheck goes into your personal savings now. Yeah? So maybe your share can cover some of the household bills. Her mouth literally fell open. I've been saving. I know. What does that have to do with anything? I've been sacrificing. She didn't answer. For the first time since we'd met, I saw uncertainty on her face. That night, she actually sat next to me on the couch. Not because she wanted to cuddle, because she wanted answers. What's happened to you? I muted the television. You happened? What does that mean? I spent years believing we were building a life together. We were. Were we? She looked away. I was giving everything I had because I thought we were a team. We are. No. I shook my head. A team doesn't have one person carrying all the weight while the other explains why basic effort isn't something they owe. She immediately got defensive. So this is all because of sex? I couldn't help laughing. No. This stopped being about sex the day you made it about obligation. It's about feeling wanted. It's about appreciation. It's about realizing that I was expected to give endlessly while asking for almost nothing in return. She crossed her arms again. I still think you're manipulating me. I nodded. And I think you've confused being loved with being served. For the first time, she had no comeback. The next morning, she left early without saying goodbye. Around noon, my phone started exploding. First came a text. Can we please talk? I ignored it. 5 minutes later, you're acting like a stranger. Ignored. Then another. My sister says you're emotionally abusing me. I finally replied. Tell your sister exactly what happened. Tell her what you said, word for word. No answer. That evening, her sister called me anyway. She immediately launched into a lecture about how husbands aren't entitled to intimacy and women deserve autonomy over their own bodies. I completely agree, I interrupted. There was a pause. You do. Absolutely. So what's the problem? The problem is that nobody is entitled to unlimited love, labor, financial support, emotional energy, thoughtful gestures, or endless sacrifice either. Silence. I accepted her boundary. I'm simply enforcing my own. She quietly ended the call. 2 days later, my mother-in-law invited us over for dinner. Halfway through the meal, she smiled awkwardly. I hear you two have been having some disagreements. Before I could answer, my wife jumped in. He's punishing me because I won't sleep with him. I set my fork down. No. Everyone looked at me. I'm treating our marriage exactly the way she defined it. What does that mean? Her father asked. I repeated her words exactly as she'd said them weeks earlier. I don't owe you intimacy. Then I looked at everyone else. And she's right. No one owes another person physical affection. But I also don't owe endless acts of service while feeling unwanted in my own marriage. The table went silent. Her father slowly nodded. Her mother looked at my wife. Is that really what you said? She didn't answer. She just stared at her plate. When we got home, she burst into tears. Not angry tears, real tears. I didn't realize how lonely I'd made you. I wish I could say everything magically got better. It didn't. She admitted she'd stopped seeing me as a partner years ago. I'd become dependable, predictable, safe. She knew I'd always be there no matter how little she invested. She assumed I'd never stop trying. She was wrong. We started counseling a month later. The counselor said something that stuck with both of us. Healthy marriages aren't built on debt. They're built on generosity that flows both ways. My wife cried harder than I'd ever seen. She admitted she'd spent years taking, without noticing. I admitted I'd spent years giving without speaking up. Neither of us was innocent, but only one of us believed the relationship could survive with effort coming from just one side. Today, things are different, not perfect, better. She plans dates now. She reaches for my hand first. She asks how my day was and actually listens. I don't know if our marriage will last forever. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. But one thing has changed permanently. I'll never confuse love with self-sacrifice again. Because the moment one spouse starts believing they owe nothing while expecting everything, the marriage has already started falling apart. So, Reddit I plus audience. Was I wrong for matching the level of effort my wife believed marriage required? Or was that the only thing that finally made her see what she'd been taking for granted?